Welcome into Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson here with you as we are, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Our pleasure right now to do some behind enemy lines work as we bring in a former New York Giant great. He's in the Ring of Fame. He's part of their radio network as well, and, of course, part of the Believe in Giants podcast as well here on the Believe Network. He is the one and only Carl Banks. Good enough to give us some time. How you doing, Carl?
I'm awesome. How are you, Scott?
Very good. Exciting. Of course, part of your career, of course, was with the Washington Redskins for that one season in 93. I don't know if you like to tell people about that or not, but, that was an interesting time in the NFL, right? This is right. We're starting the unrestricted free agency era, and there was a lot of changes in there. What do you remember about that season? Because you guys came out of the gates with a huge win over the Cowboys. I remember that year. And then after that, it just felt like it was just injury after injury. And obviously Richie Pettibone was out after one season.
Yeah, it was for me not a real great experience. Obviously, I signed there as a free agent, and I really didn't grasp the magnitude of the rivalry until I got on that side. Right, there was genuine dislike for the Giants, and I would imagine because at that time we had, as a Giant, we had, won a lot of games against Washington.
Yeah.
And, I guess, it took a minute for me to get integrated into, those environments. But, some really good people. I made some great friends, Kurt Govea, Andre Collins, Darryl Green. There was so many really good, Art Monk. There's really good people. And it's unfortunate that, the season went the way it did, but it was a bit disorganized and chaotic, right? If you look at a team that came from a Joe Gibbs structure to first-time head coach, and it was just, there was a lot going, and I'm not here to cast aspersions on, the folks that were there. But I'm sure, some of the players that remained there will tell you it just wasn't the same environment as when Joe had it. It was a bit chaotic, right? And you could tell, with Richie at times, it seems like he was, he had been in the system, but you could tell the head coaching aspect of it and his assistants, it was a bit much, than just being a defensive coordinator. Right. Yeah. And, he had Larry Peccatello was the defensive coordinator, and, just things were just different, Bonnie Coleman was also a really great dude, man. So really, I made some really good friends there. It was, again, I didn't understand quite how severe the rivalry was until I got on that side. But I have nothing but, fun things or good things to say about the people there. Wasn't used to losing like that, nor were they. And so it was an unpleasant time for me.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because about the rivalry, because, as much as the Cowboys, Redskins in that time and, over the years gets a lot of attention, I always felt like the hardest games for the franchise growing up watching it were the ones with the Giants and Bill Parcells versus Joe Gibbs. And Bill always seemed to have that little smirk on his face running off the field. I remember so many memories of Giant wins at RFK, and it's like these ones you're like, how the hell did they pull that out, And, and Bill Parcells always had that grin on his face. But, those are some great rivalries. And it kind of takes us to today. I mean, even last year when one team's up and one team's down, very close games. Daniel Jones, as you know, who did not always play great against other teams, just played awesome against Washington, no matter what the situation was. So it's always been one of those rivalries. And, that's why this week when you see these numbers, FanDuel, I think, has it now at 5.5. It was at like 6.5 at one point or 7.5 or whatever it was. I just no, they have to pay this. These games are usually very close, very, very tight and very challenging for both franchises. So I just think it's always been one of the really good rivalries in the East, that maybe it doesn't get all the shine that some of the others do. But I always felt like the Giants and Redskins and now Commanders were always challenging football games.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these deals where styles make fights. And if we, if I can go back a little bit again to the era that we were just discussing, the NFC East, or let's just say the road to the Super Bowl always went through the NFC East in the 80s. You know, there were Giants, Redskins, and 49ers. You know, one of these two teams had to win to get to the Super, because we won all the Super Bowls with the exception of 85 with the Bears. It was Redskins, Giants, and 49ers. And so we owned the 80s, and, you know, and hopefully, you know, we can get back into that space and, you know, and start to chip away at Philadelphia, you know, meaning just the rest of the conference or the division, I'm sorry. I think, you know, Washington has started to make their move, and, you know, we don't know what the Cowboys are, nor do we care collectively. But, you know, just to have a competitive division will be awesome. And I just think what Washington has done, you know, with Dan Quinn and that staff, and, you know, these new players that they have, they've really served notice that, hey, you know, Washington's going nowhere. They're here to stay.
Well, obviously a lot of eyes on Washington this year, but we've been talking a lot about the Giants this offseason. You know, on this podcast, Believe in Commanders, and seeing what they have done. It looked like a very good preseason after a strong draft. I mean, Abdul Carter, absolute stud in college. Loved what I saw from Jackson Dart in the preseason, and the fact that they can take it easy with him and let a vet like Russell Wilson play out of the gate seems really smart. I mean, this was already a good defensive line coming into this thing. How do you kind of see the way the Giants are going to play? I mean, we saw a lot of obviously deep balls during the preseason. I thought Tyron Tracy was really difficult for Washington to deal with last year. Of course, Washington was not very good against the run at all last season in a lot of games. But to me, you know, as we've talked so much about Malik Neighbors and, you know, Russell Wilson throwing deep, I kind of look at the line of scrimmage this weekend and wonder, you know, is this new look Washington defensive front going to be able to at least control that part of the game and be able to focus on, you know, Russell Wilson and getting pressure on him, and obviously figuring out a way to slow down Malik Neighbors, which obviously last year, the first time they saw him, they did not do at all.
Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to both defensive fronts, because in order for the Giants to have any opportunity to rush the passer and to really turn loose their pass rush, they've got to be able to stop the run. Washington, the same. Now, you know, I'm looking at, you know, some coaches' tape preparing for my broadcast, and the guy who just doesn't seem like he's missed a beat for Washington is Bobby Wagner. You know, great anticipation, sure tackler, never makes tackles, you know, running down the field, getting blocked. He's always either at the line of scrimmage or on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And I think, you know, with Washington, you have Frankie Louvu too, but I think you guys have added a little more up front. You lost some players. I think that was kind of where Washington was kind of trying to find their footing last year because of all the departures on that defensive front. And now, you know, you kind of stabilized and kind of figured out what you're going to do up front. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's really going to come down to who can run the ball best. But, you know, you have the X factor in Jayden Daniels, who has to factor into their run approach. So the Giants have, you know, two types or two styles of schemes they've got to defend in one player.
Well, we know the Giants, again, get after the quarterback. The Commanders, you know, were in a division that when they started the offseason, of course, they're thinking about Philadelphia, thinking about Micah Parsons, and thinking about what the Giants front looks like as well. Of course, Mike has been taken out of the equation, although they'll see him on Thursday if he's healthy against the Packers. But anyway, you know, bringing Laramie Tunsil, you know, to kind of anchor that left side. And, you know, interior will not have Sam Cosmi to start the season, which could be a problem, especially in week one with Dexter Lawrence in there. But, you know, that front that the Giants have put together, I mean, you obviously played on the greatest Giants defense there ever were. How do you kind of look at this group and how they've come along? And I know you don't get a ton of it right in the preseason. We just get little sprinkles sometimes, and maybe none at all with some of the teams. But the idea of what they'll look like with Burns and Abdul Carter, and obviously Lawrence on the end there, and in the middle, I should say, and of
Yeah.
course you still got Thibodeau too, who's always had great games against
Mhm.
Washington.
Yeah, I think the one thing you notice about this year's defensive front is they've got quality depth, which makes it rotational depth. And when I say rotational depth, that means you can now take Dexter Lawrence out and not have to worry about the next play going for 30 yards right up the middle, right? They have guys like Roy Robinson Harris, Darius Alexander, who they drafted, has been very promising. So they've got some guys in the middle of the defense where they can really start to rotate and really do some different things schematically, because on the edges, Chauncey Golston, who's a steady guy on the edge, and then Thibodeau and Burns, and then Carter, like you said. So up front, they can rotate, create different packages and different looks based on the type of team that they're going to be playing. And again, if a guy needs to get a breather, you don't have to worry about whether or not the team, as soon as the guy goes out, the team just starts running at that area. So I think the depth is the thing that stands out most. I am cautiously optimistic, but they have to play the run. They weren't very good against the run last year. And for everything that, you talk about potential with your pass rush, everyone knows it's either your offense has got to put up a lot of points to force the opponent to pass, or, which is not, if you're in a shootout with Washington, it's, you're going to be passing to keep up. It's not like you're going to have any type of advantage there. So they have to be able to stop the run. They've got to be able to create a negative down on first or second, so that they can get into a situation where their pass rush can be impactful. But, again, they've got to prove that. They got to be better tacklers than they were last year. They got to be more gap sound than they were last year. They have the same coordinator, same coaching staff, with the exception of the defensive backfield coaches. So they, we'll see just how much they've done collectively to get that fixed.
We're here with Carl Banks, Believe in Commanders podcast. Of course, Carl, one of the all-time Giant greats, and we're talking about, obviously, the Giants defense. We'll get to the offense and, of course, the perhaps future franchise quarterback with him here in a moment. But first, I want to ask you is, like, finding a great candidate, kind of like a football team trying to find that franchise quarterback, more misses than hits. Well, good news for you is if you're a business, you can take care of that with ZipRecruiter right now. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter smart technology identifies top talent for your roles quickly. Immediately after you post a job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing you qualified people for it. ZipRecruiter even lets you connect with top candidates ASAP. You can use ZipRecruiter's pre-written invite to apply message to personally reach out to your favorite candidates, encouraging them to apply sooner. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find a way to get it done for you. The needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the first day. Try it for free. The exclusive web address, again, ziprecruiter.com/audio. Again, that is ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, here on the Believe in Commanders podcast, part of Believe Network, we are with Carl Banks, and we discussed Jackson Dart briefly in the open there, Carl, as well as he played in the preseason. But Russell Wilson, the vet, comes in after a year in Pittsburgh. What do you anticipate, I guess the leeway Russell will be given this year? Is there maybe, kind of a, okay, if we're winning, we're just going to keep riding with him kind of scenario? Or do you think it's, maybe at some point this season, unless they're just rolling with the division, they're going to try to find a way to get Jackson Dart on the football field?
Well, I think there's the addition of Russell Wilson to the Giants was kind of a situation where they both needed each other. The Giants were in desperate need of leadership, player-driven leadership, Russell provides that. He is a chronically positive person. But when you have leadership, especially at the quarterback position, and he is overtly their leader. The next thing the locker room does is they look and see if you can still play, because if not, it's just a bunch of noise. Russell's arm is still live, and they came off a really bad year, so the Giants need him to be successful. He needs the Giants so that he can, really show that he can still play. But at the end of the day, Scott, there's still a mandate to win, right? Drafting your future in Jackson Dart is great, but they want to be able to develop him at a pace that we were accustomed to, where you just didn't throw rookies in because you didn't have anything else, right? They have Wilson, they have Winston. So if Russell if Russell starts out well and continues well, the only thing I can see happening is Jackson Dart starts to get packages, right, and get some NFL experience. But I don't think Russell Wilson's on borrowed time unless he's just not playing well. And there's not much difference, if you will. We have nothing else to lose if you put the rookie in and it's time to get him going. But the feeling in the Giants organization, and I think to a large degree justifiably from what they've seen, is that Russell Wilson can play, he can run their offense, he'll be able to do the things that Brian Daboll expects from his quarterbacks, and Mike Kafka and the play calling. They don't feel constrained. And I think, with Daniel Jones there, the offense just looked hard. And that's, it's a function of many things, including the offensive line. But Daniel Jones doesn't have the experience that Russell Wilson has. Like, Russell Wilson is a pre-snap and post-snap read guy, right? So he's got great anticipation. He's been around. He's seen it all, been to a Super Bowl. So he kind of understands this at a graduate level, which will help these young players there.
Speaking of the guys up front, is it better? I know that's been kind of a work in progress for multiple seasons now, trying to get that group up front set. What have you seen there throughout camp and through the preseason as we get ready to kick it off on Sunday?
Well, I think the challenge around the league is to field a healthy offensive line. Offensive linemen just aren't developing, especially on the outside, as fast as teams would like them to, considering it's a passing league. You even saw that in the Philadelphia-Dallas game last night. But you want to get a healthy group so that at least you can consistently plan around your weaknesses so that you can, you can compensate. But when you have what the Giants had last year, a revolving door at every position on the offensive line, it's just hard to plan your run game. It's hard to plan your protections because you're playing with backups that were in some cases not even good enough to be on other teams, as second teamers. So they've gotten better talent. They're healthier. They drafted well. They've got free agents in James Hudson III from Cleveland. He's been really good for them, very athletic. He brings kind of an attitude. Marcus Bowe, who they drafted, has shown that he can play both sides equally. He's kind of an ambidextrous tackle. Like, he switches, series to series in camp, and he just doesn't look like he's struggling at either one. He's obviously a rookie, but he seems to be pretty even-handed.
That's pretty awesome. We're here with Carl Banks. Of course, Carl will be on the call for Giants Radio Network this weekend as the Commanders host the Giants, also part of Believe in Giants on the Believe Network as well. Talked about Malik Neighbors earlier in that first meeting, week 2 last year. Giants kicker gets hurt on the opening kickoff, or who knows? I
Mhm.
mean, I think the Giants probably could win that game. They had to go for it a lot of fourth downs and things like that out of their character. But man, he put on a clinic in his second game in the NFL on a couple of vets, one of which is Mike Davis, who pretty much ended that guy's season with the Commanders. After that, we didn't see him on the field a whole lot, and he was running circles around him. They played a little bit better against him in the second game, but I know he's been
Mhm.
kind of held out of a lot of things in the preseason. But I got to imagine, if this team's going to have a big year, you mentioned if they have to get into a shootout and put it in the air, he's going to be a big part of that. I know they have other receivers they like, but how much does Malik Neighbors influence, maybe the upside of what this team can be this season?
Well, I think just his raw talent, his route running ability has been really good from the minute he walked in the door. He's got a level of leadership that he brings, but again, having Russell Wilson uh, kind of being his mentor, if you will, he's understanding the game at a different level. He's just not playing it. And I think that's only going to make him more dangerous. But he is, he's an alpha. He's the ultimate competitor. Um, and he just, and it's also something about these LSU receivers. They
Yeah.
come out a little more advanced. They come out NFL ready. And, when you put them with a good quarterback, you really tend to see them blossom. But the other part, he had a high target rate last year because he was the best thing they had, and probably the most reliable. I think now, again, with Russell Wilson and the way they can scheme the offense, they'll get other players involved, and he can have a little more success without having to worry about doubles because of the diversity of skill sets that they have that'll be on the field offensively.
We're here, Believe in Commanders podcast, part of the Believe Network. Scott Jackson and former Giants great Carl Banks, who, of course, will be on the call with the Giants Radio Network this weekend, part of the Believe in Giants podcast as well. What kind of game do you think the Giants would like? If you look at a game script, what would you say the Giants want this style? They say style, styles win fights. What's the style the Giants need on Sunday to win on the road?
I think the Giants would love to make it a slug out, but it's going to be hard to do because Jayden Daniels is a stick and move guy. He can finesse you to death. Super smart, does everything, within convention and unconventional. So it's just hard. But if the Giants can establish an offense and, kind of bleed the clock, in my opinion, it just limits the opportunities for Jayden Daniels to go out and do what he does. But he's a super talented guy, but I just think you've got to try to play Washington on your terms, not on their terms, because if you try to play on their terms, it's just nearly impossible with the things that Jayden Daniels can do with the football and, being off schedule, and his receivers kind of understand when he gets off schedule where they need to be, and it's always resulting in a big play.
Carl, man, we appreciate your insights and your time today. Again, Carl Banks can be seen and heard on the Believe in Commanders podcast and, of course, the Giants Radio Network on the call this weekend from Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. Carl, again, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong, part of the Believe Network, and we've heard from Carl Banks and the Giants. So, Anthony, let's get to the nitty-gritty on the Commanders and what it's going to take to win this game. And, of course, first tell the folks what they need to do on the show.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned with us all season long because we got the best content. We got the best opinions. And frankly, I think we're a pretty good duo as well.
Well, I like that too. Let's start with this. Look, we haven't really seen much of the Commanders' ones. We got one series of Jayden Daniels in the Cincinnati game. Never saw him and Terry McLaurin this preseason with Deebo Samuel. So the big unknown of what we may see. Deebo Samuel yesterday wasn't given out any information. I loved it. They said, "What's your role going to be?" And he goes, "Tune in week 1." And that's right. And here we are, a few days away from week 1. So what do you kind of foresee that looking like for Deebo, and how Terry fits in still, and what we're going to get from this Commanders offense? Because there's a lot of newness to it, even though there's a lot of familiar faces.
There is a lot of newness to it, and I think the additions have made the scheme change a bit. What we saw last year, long drawn out plays, long drawn out drives, and a lot of checkdowns, frankly, and good ball control by Jayden Daniels. I think that the ball control stays there. He's still going to be one of the top quarterbacks in this league, and he's still going to have some success with his legs, but defenses are going to force him to get the ball to his weapons and throw the ball a bit more this season. Now, frankly, that's what he likes to do. You go back to last year, everybody said he's a passer first, but he can dice you up with his legs. But I think the way that teams got caught up last year, they're not going to let that happen as much. So watch the lane integrity, be a little bit more precise going up against Jayden. Watch there being aspired to out there on the back end for the defense. So what does that do for you on offensive, Scott? It gives you a chance to have one-on-one with Terry McLaurin, one-on-one with Deebo Samuel. Now, what Terry McLaurin's going to do is have to break the trend of the last 3 matchups against the Giants. He has had under 50 yards receiving on each of those matchups. I think it was like 43, 13, and then like 9. Something ridiculously low over these last matchups. So he's got to break that stride, and I think having Deebo over there will help him get a little bit more downfield and have a lot more impact catching the ball in this upcoming matchup.
And of course, we're still, guessing as to what the running back rotation is going to be. And we know Eckler's going to start, right? Is it Rodriguez first? Is it Bill? Where's Jeremy McNichols fit in? I think he'll have his role. But I think, this week, even though they put him as 4th on the unofficial depth chart, there was some reporting out at Commanders practice that he was maybe rotating in with a 2. So, look, I think they're going to, they asked Cliff Kingsbury about the hot hand thing too. And he certainly said, of course you do that. If you've got a guy who's got it going, you're going to keep feeding the ball and keep him in the game. So that will be fascinating. Look, we know that Zach Ertz is going to be a big part of whatever they do this weekend, as he was last season. Zach's going to be a big part of it. The running backs, they're going to throw the ball to Eckler too. He was very good out of the backfield for them last year, and sometimes they'd split him out wide. So I think we'll see that as well. But you nailed it about and I was thinking about this watching the Eagles game last night in the first half when Dallas had terrible lane integrity and Jalen Hurts was killing them. And I was thinking about, man, if teams, do that to Jayden Daniels, this is going to be his opportunity to run. We, of course, all want to see him probably run less and just take just take those moments for third downs or money plays, what have you, and not have to do it all the time. Obviously to take down that wear and tear. But man, I still think he's going to be a big part of the running game, because like, why would you take that away? That's part of his superpowers, right? Like, you still need him to also use that dual threat to keep these defensives honest throughout the season. So, Giants have got a good front.
Yep.
It's going to be a huge test. Talking to Carl Banks earlier, as you guys heard, he thinks the Giants want it to be kind of a slugfest, a little bit uglier, lower scoring kind of game. And, don't want to kind of avoid, having to deal with a shootout or a track meet against this Washington offense.
Yeah, the track meet side of things means that the Giants are running down, scoring a lot of points too. And Joe Witt and Dan Quinn, I don't think that's going to happen on this other side. Whereas, Russell Wilson will take some shots downfield, and Malik Neighbors is going to be out there for week 1. I think the secondary is much improved. I think the defensive front, the defensive line is where you're going to have maybe a little bit of question marks about how you're going to get to the quarterback. You saw what happened last night. If you aren't able to get to the quarterback, then things happen for that offense. But I could say this, they are going to be set up to slow down the run. I think that's what they're really going to be in there for. The big defensive linemen inside, Dietrich Wise, Dorrance Armstrong out there on the edges are going to help put the Giants in 3rd and long situations, forcing them to pass, and then something like that will help, play some field position games, and you get that offense to put the ball into the end zone.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see it finally, like the real thing. I'm looking forward to it. And as we know, look, week 1 to week 2, biggest improvement. We talk about it in college football and pro football all the time. So just because you see one thing Sunday doesn't mean you're going to see it. Well, in the Commanders' case, Thursday, right? I mean, which is nuts because you have to turn around and play that quickly on the road at Lambeau. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to it because I think there has been such a narrative when the offseason started that, oh man, here it comes. Jayden Daniels, the market correction's about to hit him. The league's caught up. They're watching him. They've got this offense figured out. They've had all offseason to study it. And like people act like Cliff Kingsbury was sitting on a beach with a Mai Tai, the whole offseason, and Jayden was just, doing the rubber chicken banquet series, picking up awards and eating and not working out or, going through his process. Meanwhile, these two guys have actually probably worked harder. They've got more wrinkles. They've got a shutdown left tackle. They've got a really good young right tackle now. Even without Sam Cosmi, this is the best offensive line they're going to line up in multiple seasons here for week one that has some depth. And, couple that with a quarterback who obviously knows what he's doing, after year one and has got a lot of confidence and caught the league, by storm last year. I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that this is not going to be just some, team that comes in, fat and happy from a year ago. I think they feel like they've got a lot to prove. And I think there'll be some things that we did not see last year from this group in terms of both the offense and the defense.
Absolutely. Cliff Kingsbury, one of the top play callers in the country at any level. He's going to have some changes that he's going to make, some nuances that he's going to grow and build into this offense. He's got new weapons, and he's got a quarterback that knows how he wants to improve. And frankly, he's got a whole bunch of data that he can go back on. It makes me think about the data brokers that are out there. Odd transition, I know, but you think about data brokers, or what do they do, Scott? They have your name, your contact info, social security number, even your home address, and family member information as well, which is kind of scary. It could all be compiled by data brokers, and then they sell that stuff online. So when you're over there doing those surveys and whatnot, you're putting that stuff on the websites. Some data brokers grab it, they sell it out, and then you end up getting yourself on some crazy spam list. I know this much: the New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for a data removal service. Now, for me, I have my report in my email. They are working on, contacting those data brokers. They work to get your stuff removed. They said some of them are really prompt about it, and some of them can take some persistence. And I'm glad to have the Delete Me team on my side to help work to get some of those information received. But you can take control of your data today, Scott. You can take control of yours and your private life. Keep it private by signing up with Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners and you folks sitting here watching. Today, you can get 20% off of your Delete Me plan by texting PRO, that's PRO, to 64000 64000. The only way to get 20% off is to text PRO to 64000. That's PRO, PRO, to 64000. There may be some messaging and data rates that apply. Thank you. I know this much.
Believe in Commanders podcast, part of Believe Network. Scott Jackson, Anthony Armstrong. By the way, the captains have been set for week one. I don't think it's any real breaking news. Jayden Daniels for offense, Bobby Wagner for defense, and Jeremy Reeves, who has had one of the great camps this year for this team, will be your special teams captain. So those are the three guys for week one against the Giants. And let's be real. I mean, you can name whoever you want a captain. Those are your big leaders on this franchise, for this team, as they have been since last season going forward here. Noah Brown, might be a little dicey whether or not he plays this weekend as we are taping here. If he doesn't go, that will be interesting. Do you think we'll see more from the tight ends? Do you think we'll see more Jalen Lane potentially? Is that open the door for Luke McCaffrey? Again, or maybe using Austin Eckler out there, put somebody, the other back in the backfield. You can split Eckler out because he's very good at running routes too. I'm curious because I feel like there's a lot of ways Cliff Kingsbury could go with that. Not having, if he doesn't have the big body Noah Brown there as the third receiver.
When you remove that larger, person of Noah Brown, now you got to find, number one, who's the next most willing and capable blocker. And you've seen some good things from Luke McCaffrey, so that makes me think he may get put into that role. But then Jalen Lane, his speed is something that is not, that Noah Brown doesn't have. Noah's a good player. He can get down the field, but Jalen Lane is coming through there with some gas, and he's trying to get down the field. And that can really open some things up vertically for your offense. So when you have speed on the field, defenses have to respect it or they're going to get beat by it. It's only going to take 1 or 2 times for them to get beat by it before they make adjustments. Look for Jalen Lane to get onto the field because of his ability to push those safeties deep, and that's going to allow a few more things to happen underneath for his compadres, the other tight ends, and some of those wide receivers.
All right, give me a kind of a game script. How do you slow down this Giants pass rush if you're Washington in order to be able to hit some of those deep plays later on in the football game?
Now, I tell you what, first and foremost, you're going to take advantage of them being hungry and ready to hunt early on. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a screen or maybe, screen something like that early just to get Austin Eckler out on the edge. Abdul Carter is going to be ready to get after the quarterback. So let them rush up high, and then you drop something up underneath. Stay ahead of the sticks, right? Stay ahead of the sticks, being able to move the ball, running the ball for, 3 or 4 yards to carry. Chris Rodriguez is going to be important in that. And just staying in third and manageable situations so that the defensive line cannot pin their ears back. They can't sit back and expect 20-yard dig routes like we used to see 2 and 3 years ago that was predictable from this offense. So if you give Cliff Kingsbury the ability to play with all of the cards in the deck rather than just a small selection, it gives you the best ability to defeat this team and keep them confused, keep the Giants on their heels when it comes to attacking their defense.
Commanders and Giants this weekend from Northwest Stadium, and the line moved on FanDuel. I mean, it was at one point 6.5. Now we're looking at a 5.5 for that game. I know you've had your eyes on some other things with the FanDuel opportunities on Sunday. What do you got?
I was having a little fun with it since FanDuel gives you a few options, and I feel like I need my bifocals the way I'm looking at this notebook. They did have a 4-leg same-game parlay. It includes a Deebo Samuels anytime touchdown, a Malik Neighbors anytime touchdown, and JD5 throwing for 200 yards or more. Now, you wonder, Anthony, where's the fourth out of this? It's a 4-leg parlay. This is the one where that Terry McLaurin to have over 50 yards receiving comes into play. Now, earlier I mentioned his last 3 matchups against the Giants. He has had 43 yards, 22 yards, and 19 yards. The one with 19 yards, he did have 2 touchdowns. Remember those games where the targets were pretty low,
right,
and the production was pretty low. So is Terry going to get over that 50? That's the question mark for me. But I think after the new contract and the question marks for the Giants secondary, that could be a good play for you right there. Another person with an anytime touchdown that I liked was Chris Rodriguez Jr. I think this team is going to find themselves into the red zone, into that short area, and he's your big back. He's your power guy. Look for Chris Rodriguez Jr. to get in the end zone. And let me see, do I have anything else over there? Ooh, one was I was peeking around. You mentioned the rushing yards. Jayden Daniels is at 42 and a half, over or under. And then Austin Eckler over or under 25 and a half. Eckler, I think maybe the under for Jayden. I think maybe the under as well. I think they want to keep him more upright, throwing the rock and let everybody else do the work rather than him have to put the cape on in week 1.
Well, I can't wait to see it. Interested to see how much better this defense is, at least on paper, set up to deal with Malik Neighbors than they were in week 2 last year when they first saw Malik Neighbors and that unfortunate experience that was. They did win the game, but boy, that was tough. I mean, the Giants, if the kicker doesn't get hurt, who knows, right? I mean, Greg Jennings pulls a hammy on the opening kickoff. They had to go for it throughout that game. But, these games are always tough with the Giants. I know it says 5.5, but we've lived through too many of these Giants Washington experiences to know better. It's usually a tough football game, no matter what the final outcome looks like. For whoever wins it, it definitely earns it. So just happy to tee it up. Happy to have football. Happy to have it back. Yeah. So we'll talk about it when it's all said and done next week. Can't wait, Anthony.
Yes, indeed. I know this much. It just does not need to start as crazy as it did last night. Please keep all your bodily fluids to yourself for the week 1 matchup. No spitting. There used to be
no retaliating. The retaliator always gets caught.
Nothing. No touching, no kicking, no spitting, all that. Just keep it to yourself, fellas. I'm looking forward to this matchup week 1. Make sure y'all keep it locked with us. Keep it followed, commenting, and subscribing on this with the Believe in Commanders. That's Scott Jackson. I'm Anthony Armstrong, the original 1-3. Y'all be good. Take it easy, and we'll see you on Sunday.